Hello folks, welcome back to the shop. Today I am working on fixing this table saw that I got in. As you can see, it is all apart or partially apart right now, with the table over on the little saw aluminum scaffold bench thing there, and motor is there. And to get it in my car, got some baling twine and some boards to hold this saw unit up so it doesn't bend all to everything. The lead screw's already bent a little bit that adjust the motor, but you know, that's just how it is. So basically this was a song, and it was "Get It While the Getting's to Be Got." It's a Mooradian from Los Angeles, and obviously it has been used and abused. Got a few different coats of paint on it, and basically this is the kind of stuff you got to do if you want to get yourself set up on the cheap. I see a lot of folks online, or talking in the actual world, where they'll say, hey, yeah, Joe, I'd love to actually make stuff, but I don't have any money, or I don't have any of that fancy equipment. And well, here's what you do when you've got that. So it takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit of space, but you adjust your aspirations depending on your space and your time and your budget, and there you go. So there's going to be a lot of tedious work in this today, stripping paint and cleaning stuff out, taking it apart. I'll try to cut in when the footage is going to get interesting. Alright, so I figured I'd show you a little trick. Might be able to see it, but this is a Woodruff key. I've talked about those before. It goes down in this little key slot here, or key seat as they are called, right? It goes in like that, and what it does is it interfaces with this keyway on this hand wheel, so that when you turn the hand wheel, the lead screw or shaft will turn, right? Well, what can happen is these are made out of real sort of malleable metal, right? You want this to fail before everything else does, because this is one of those easily replaceable parts. Well, what can happen is that these get sort of stuck or hung up or whatever if they're in there for a really, really long time. And the thing is I can replace this, but I need to get it out to be able to do other work on this machine. So what I do is I make a little notch in it, then I use a crappy chisel, right, that I don't care about, and I lever it out. You can get the edge of that chisel right there in that little slot, you can see it, and you can lever on out, and there you go. Alright, so we've got the saw part out and the adjustment lead screws and all that out. We're just dealing with almost an empty box here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on its side, take off the switch, and then we'll get to getting all this paint off, and I'll show you a couple different ways you can do that I have. Alright, well, when it comes to removing paint, you got a few options. You could scrape it, alright, and that, well, it takes a while, it's tedious, but it works. If that's what you got, you go with what you got. Get the old wire brush out, alright. You could use heat, you could use a chemical stripper, you could use any of those things. I'm going to use the old noisy mangler here and get myself all armored up for battle with, I'm going to roll my sleeves up a little bit, get gloves on. I like to use a fan to blow the dust away, and all the other things that make me feel a little bit better about grinding on old, what is undoubtedly lead paint. Your mileage may vary. Use the equipment that you want to use. These wires do like to fly out, So I use safety glasses for my eyes and a face shield for my face. And it's not so bad. It's just if you're going to use a tool, you got to use tools to use a tool sometimes. So this is a Cup wire brush. I like them just because the angle of the approach is a little better, I feel like, and I get better results. You can use a wheel with the wires coming out this ways, and that's fine too. I feel like they tend to throw more wires out. And yeah, there you go. I'll do a little bit of this on camera, but it's going to be long and tedious and loud and noisy, and I don't really want a whole bunch of dust in my new camera, so that's what you're going to get. Now before you start using a big dust producing machine, if you've got an ability to get the dust away from you, then that's a good idea. And I like to put a drop cloth or a cover over things in my shop that I don't want to get dust on. So, yeah. Let me get my ear hole pluggers in and get to wire wheeling. Mostly rust and loose paint free situation, right? Put a nice little semi-consistent pattern in it, so you know, maybe it's an artistic thing. Well, you know, you take it as you get it. Okay, so I got all or most of the junk off. Now, of course, the better job you do at all the prep, the better the paint job will turn out. But, you know, I could take all this paint off. It would take me way longer, or I could use stripper, a chemical stripper, and that would work real great. But I just don't feel like it. Alright, so now I got things masked off that I don't want to get paint on it. I'm just going to get the rattle can going. Now, where a lot of people mess up with the rattle can is they put it on too thick right to begin with, and they get drips and streaks and sort of funky paint. So you just do nice, well, you follow the directions in the back, right? And 6 to 12 inches away, and that's what we're doing. Well, when it comes to paint, you get what you pay for. So we'll figure this out. So a couple hours of work. Alright, so I got the motor apart here. I mostly scraped. What I did was sort of take it apart. I got some compressed air and I blew it out. So this was all filled up with gunk and dust, and of course the flakes of paint that fell in through, right? I didn't, you know, take it apart at all, take anything off. I just cleaned it out and then just checked on its overall well-being. I looked for places where it looked like things got hot. I didn't see any of that. Sometimes you'll see, you know, if there's a funky wire, you'll see a little scorchy, and if you can fix it sooner rather than later, when you got it all apart, then you don't have to deal with it later when you've got a job you're trying to do and you're trying to get it done, and all of a sudden your equipment breaks down on you, and then you're not so happy, right? So I don't know, interesting little inside here. And I haven't decided what color I'm going to paint this yet, or if I'm doing any accent stuff. Now, of course, I didn't have to do all this work. I could have just put the machine back together and run it. But you know, we want to have a long-term plan here, and want to make it look nice. Breathe a little bit of life into it, and you know, I hope I've got enough years left that, you know, if I put a little bit of effort in, I can have a nice piece of equipment for free or cheap for a long time. All right, as the great Ron Swanson said, you don't want to half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. And so in the spirit of whole-assery, if you'll excuse my French, we're speaking of the donkey here, of course, not of any particular part of the anatomy, right? Is that when you're tightening something down, much like when you change the tire on your car, right? You don't tighten all the bolts and all the nuts on one side and then leave the other side floppy. You tighten them in a pattern. Now here we have 4 different points, and these caps move independently of each other. So we want to get them lined up, and when we tighten everything down, if we tightened everything on this side, it would pull it out of alignment and it would pull it all funky, and we wouldn't get a good seat of these on their ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just snug each nut up. I'm going to start with this one. I'll go down over on this side. I'll snug this one up, and then I'll go up over here. And then I'll restart the process, but I'll go a little tighter on this side, a little tighter on this side, until we're snug, all right? And that's just something to keep in mind. You want to focus and pay attention to what you're doing so that when you put something back together, it goes back more or less in the same configuration as you got it. Now, I've already established that I'm a pretty high-class individual when it comes to this sort of thing, but figured I'd, cheapen it down a little bit. So instead of using triple refined hand-woven Alaskan camel eyelashes to mask off this project for paint, I'm just going to use this old duct tape. And this will please all you folks who worship at the altar of our patron saint of the gray roll. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, then you're not one of them. So one of the cool things about repairing old stuff is you get to sort of play detective. And so I was looking at these hand wheels here, and if you can see those scratches. What that tells me is that somebody put pliers or something on it that scarred it up, if you can see that. Which means that an awful lot of torque was put on this hand wheel. And what do you know? We've got a bent lead screw here. Other than that, everything here seems to be in pretty good shape. But we'll take the shaft assembly apart for the actual blade, and I'll film that so you can see that. I'll be right back after I get some of the schmoo cleaned up. Alright, I got my puller here sort of engaged and ready to go, but cleaning away all the sawdust revealed this little fitting here. I wanted to talk about it real quick. It's a Zerk fitting, what I've always heard them call. I don't know if it's the technical term. What that is a port for our old hot grease injector here. And by that I say it's not actually hot grease, it's just regular. And what you do is you put I'm not going to put any grease here because I don't want to make a big old mess. And you basically push this down and you insert grease under pressure, and it pushes all the gross out, up and out hopefully. So it's flushing out the contamination rather than bringing anything in from the outside. We'll give you a closer look. I'll pull this this old deal off. I'll have to get a tripod for this. I should mention you're going to want to look for and take out any set screws that may exist. What that means is that there's often a key right in the key seat, and there's going to be a set screw potentially holding it in, and that's just a screw that goes in and applies pressure to that key to keep it against the shaft, to keep it from falling out and such. So yeah, you want to grab your handy dandy tool. Make sure to throw it into your scrap bin that's underneath your bench so that you get a nice opportunity to sort of fiddle around in the dark for a while. And then once you get it out, you want to ease those set screws out. A little bit of lubey never hurt anybody. Well, except when it sprays in your face like that. Good thing I'm wearing safety glasses, right? Oh man, that stinks. Alright. So, block the shaft. See this sort of greasy sawdust right here at the end of the shaft? It's and there's just pure grease right there. That's good. That means that it's lubricated in there, and we're not running dry, and there's probably not a lot of contamination in there. So that's a good sign. Here we go. You just got to think real hard. You got to think strong thoughts. Oh, there you go. But yeah, well, this is looking good here. See all this grease? That's good stuff. That's a really good sign. When you're working with stuff that you don't know its maintenance history or whatever, it means that at least there's the slippy slidey bits are more or less slipping and sliding like they're supposed to be. Alright.